Hi guys, Megan Claire. So tonight's video blog was meant to be from St. Augustine, which we recently did a road trip up to one of the US's most historic and oldest towns. However, we had a huge storm hit Florida last night, so instead I'm giving you a weather update. I'll post the St. Augustine video blog later on in the week. So the storm that hit Florida last night was apparently pretty tame in comparison to what Florida can experience in terms of like hurricanes and storms. Not having experienced anything like that before, however, I thought the world was about to end. So this is Megan Claire, and you can't see me because the lightning and thunderstorm took out our power, but it's about midnight. Thunder and lightning storm in Florida! Woo! Okay, so every year families attempt to seek beaches and barges in Florida during that long stretch of months from June to November, which is officially hurricane season. More storms hit Florida than in any other US state. Now typically at least one named storm makes landfall in Florida every season, and some areas of Florida may be as risky as the Caribbean islands. Apparently the chances of Miami being hit by a hurricane is higher than anywhere else in the Caribbean. So the period from August to October is at the height of the hurricane season in Florida, and for Floridians, hurricane preparedness is a part of life. So the big question, can you travel to Florida during hurricane season? Absolutely. You can also travel to the Caribbean islands. The chances of your particular vacation spot being affected by a horrendous storm during the days of your visit are pretty slim. Also, state and local governments are well aware of the importance of tourism to Florida's economy, and they closely monitor any developing storm activity and anticipate the impact for visitors. So the best thing to do if you're thinking of travelling to Florida during hurricane season, you can check hurricane policies and weather guarantees, which are generally offered by your resort or vacation package, and you can also check prediction for the current year at the National Hurricane Center. And the internet has a ton of practical tips for travellers. So a hurricane is a tropical cyclone with wind speeds of at least 74 miles per hour, which equates to about 119 kilometers per hour. 1 in 10 of the hurricanes to appear in the North Atlantic hits Florida, which means an average of one of these big storms every 2 years. The hurricane season runs from June 1 to November 30, and as I said before, the greatest threat is during August and October. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, which measures the winds and ocean flooding expected, categorises hurricanes from 1 to 5. And Category 5 is the worst, with winds over 155 miles per hour, which equates to about 249 kilometers per hour. So the development of a hurricane is influenced by several factors, primarily heat and wind. So first the sun must warm the ocean surface enough for water to evaporate, and then this rises and condenses into thunderclouds, which are sent spinning by the Earth's rotation. So the hurricane moves forward, and it can be tracked using satellite images. On hitting land, the storm loses power because it's cut off from the source of energy, which is the warm ocean. So obviously some years are worse than others. On August 24, 1992, Hurricane Andrew completely devastated South Florida. It measured only 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, which was less than the 1935 hurricane, which hit the Florida Keys. But it was the country's most costliest natural disaster, causing $25 billion worth of damage. Astonishingly though, only 15 people died in Florida and 23 in the country as a whole from the direct effects of Hurricane Andrew. So the most damage and deaths during a hurricane are actually not a result of the wind and rain, but of flooding from the storm surge. So this wall of water is whipped up by fierce winds in the eye of the storm and then crashes onto the shore, and it can span over 50 miles, which is about 80 kilometres, and reach a height of about 20 feet or 6 metres or more. Honestly, you don't really need to worry now though, because there's excellent monitoring in place. So to monitor a hurricane is done by the assistance of satellites and computer and radars. The National Hurricane Center in Miami can detect a hurricane long before it reaches Florida, and the most detailed information is provided by pilots known as hurricane hunters who fly in and out of the hurricane gathering data. So the damage from a hurricane is greatly reduced by being prepared. Television and radio bulletins keep the public informed, and everyone is encouraged to plan the route of the storm on special hurricane tracking maps. So the issuing of a hurricane watch is the first indication that a hurricane could hit Florida. This means the storm may arise within 36 to 48 hours, and a hurricane warning heralds the storm's likely arrival within 24 hours. Airports are likely to close during these alerts, so emergency management officials may then issue evacuation orders via the local news media before a hurricane hits, and people living in high-rise buildings, mobile homes and low-lying areas are particularly vulnerable. The Red Cross shelters take in those with nowhere else to go. And once a hurricane dissipates or moves on, the all clear is given for people to return home. However, safety is still a concern after a storm because of down power lines, flooding and clean-up related accidents, so just be careful. So don't use hurricane season as an excuse not to come to Florida. The weather's fantastic, the majority of the tourists are gone, and because of the lack of tourism, you'll find the cheapest prices throughout the year. So Florida is seeing 2 tropical storms already this year, Tropical Storm Andrea, which hit in early June, and Tropical Storm Barry, which hit during the evening hours of June 15. So both storms caused localised flooding, which saw over 1,000 people flee their homes, and there was significant roof damage to several houses. However, there was only one injury, thankfully, and there were no deaths. So the names for the tropical storms, which happen in the rest of the North Atlantic hurricane season in 2013, have already been picked, and you can expect Chantel, Dorian, Erin, Fernand, Gabrielle, Roberto, Ingrid, Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nesta, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca, Sebastian, Tanya, Van and Wendy. Retired names, if any, will be announced by the World Meteorological Organization in the spring of 2014, and the names not retired from this list will be used again in the 2019 season. Originally only women's names were used, but since 1979 both men's and women's names have been alternated. So that's all from me tonight. Our next video blog will be from St. Augustine. Having not hit August yet, I'm hoping that the storms don't get any worse than they were last night, but I will keep you updated.